Hello everyone and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Whitney and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. Today we've got 2 movies, and I am Tennille.
And I am Whitney. That's right, we're watching 2 movies that were literally supposed to be watched back to back. We have Space Runaway Ideon, A Contact, and B Invoked.
Right.
Also known as just the Ideon, A Contact, B Invoked.
Yeah, so for clarity's sake, these movies are based on the TV show Space Runaway Ideon.
Yes.
These movies came out on the same day in July of 1982 as The Ideon, A Contact, which was a recap of the first 33 episodes of the anime. And then the second movie, The Ideon, Be Invoked, was then episodes 33 through 39 and some.
Okay, so it was like the recap and then the finale, essentially.
I mean, the show had its own finale, and we'll talk about that. Be Invoked is considered the canonical ending of the anime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll talk about why it's different and yada yada yada. But I think in order to talk about that, we're going to have to just kind of talk about some of our thoughts on these films and also go through the plot synopsis. Because it won't make sense until we talk about that.
Yes. I do just want to say before we get started, it started well and then just kind of ended in an upsetting way.
This movie's dark.
Yeah. The second movie especially.
The second movie especially.
Very,
the first
very dark.
movie, like, it has its moments, but it's not
It seems fairly
of
standard.
the time.
Yeah, very standard space adventure. But the second one especially gets pretty dark, and there was one scene in particular that was very upsetting and did not need to be there.
Yeah, and I did not go into this prepared that it was going to be this way. So we were both taken a little aback.
Yeah, so
That's not to say that this wasn't good. I still think both of these films were pretty good, especially considering it's condensing down
39 episode show.
Yeah, I was actually really impressed with the first film and how well it was able to
Recap all the important bits.
Right, it didn't feel like a movie that was just recapping episodes. There are definitely parts where I was like, oh, well, that's probably the end of an episode, or that's probably the end of an episode. But for the most part, like, it tied it together to flow like a movie would pretty well, and that's really impressive.
The biggest problem is we don't really get to know our main characters. Because it's plot beat, plot beat, plot beat, plot beat, plot beat, plot beat. We don't get to know any of the actual characters that are involved in this story super well.
Yeah.
And so the second movie probably hit a lot harder for people that had actually watched the show and knew all of these characters.
Which I'm glad we didn't, because like, it was already upsetting enough. I'm glad that I wasn't super emotionally attached to all these characters.
Yeah, I guess we keep saying that the movie is upsetting, and we'll explain why once we get there. Let's go ahead and do the plot synopsis now.
All right.
So, movie 1, A Contact. There are aliens investigating a planet, and it turns out there are Earthlings on this planet. And the Earthlings have found 3 ships that turn into a giant robot. It's a mecha robot show. Cool.
Of course.
Fighting accidentally starts. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter why, but these 2 factions are fighting now, and there's...
That's one thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you so early on. That's one thing that I think this first movie doesn't do super well, or at least I was having a hard time with, is that while I understand the basic plot beats, I don't necessarily understand the hows or the whys super well.
So, the princess of the aliens investigating the planet has come down and landed in the forest near an excavation site where they have found these robot bits. And so, other aliens have come down to grab her and put her back on the on the main ship, because they're not supposed to contact other species, other intelligent life forms. Well, one of the ships sees that she landed near this excavation site, so they open fire on the people at the excavation site, which starts the fighting in the first place.
Right.
And it just kind of escalates from there. It's a big misunderstanding. They keep thinking the other people are doing the bad things to them, so they keep fighting. And most of the Earthlings get blown up. There are some children that crawl inside the robot parts, which transforms into a giant robot, and then they keep fighting, blah, 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 blah.
It's a pretty complex initial conflict.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. All you really have to know is everyone hates each other now. The robot takes off with a spaceship, which was also thought to be decommissioned, which has the remaining humans left from this planet on it. So, it was a new colony of humans on this planet, essentially.
Yeah, and the space robot that they found is not something that they've built. It's something that, a previous civilization of aliens have made. And I think that's also true of their spaceship, but I'm not sure.
Well, the spaceship that they're on is also connected to this robot, and is collectively known as the Ide or the Ideon. And it seems to have some sort of sentience of its own.
Right. They allude pretty early on that they see it as almost like a godlike being.
The aliens that were investigating this planet specifically call it the God Robot or something.
Yeah.
And it apparently has some sort of infinite power source, which is why they were investigating it in the first place. So now the aliens want this robot that the humans now have and are fleeing with. And so they fight a lot.
They fight a lot. And I think it's important to say here, too, that the term alien is really just...
intelligent species that is not us.
Well, no. I mean, it's being used in its most literal form of, someone who is not of here.
Yes.
So, everybody in this movie is human.
Essentially.
The
aliens also look human. They have more brightly colored hairstyles. Honestly,
they're the Buff Clan.
The Buff Clan, that's what they're called, yes.
Yeah.
The Buff Clan and then our traditional humans. They look almost identical. The Buff Clan all have slightly goofy haircuts that honestly really remind me of Spock and the other... Klingons. Is it Klingon? Shoot. Oh, no. I don't know. Spock from Star Trek.
Vulcan.
Vulcans. I was like, Klingon doesn't sound right.
No, Klingon's different.
Klingon have the head bumps.
Yeah.
The Vulcans, yes. They remind me of the Vulcans and their dweeby hairstyles. They don't have pointy ears or any psychic abilities or anything like that.
Right.
They're essentially human, but they have dweeby hairstyles that are more colorful, like they're blue or red and stuff like that. And that's kind of important, that both sides of this fight are essentially normal humans.
Yeah.
For some reason.
It's just this whole series is very easily pointing out how pointless war is.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's they're all fighting over this one thing so that the other people can't have it and use it against them.
Right. They're not even fighting because they want the superpowered robot. They're fighting because they don't
want the superpowered robot used against them, which, in fairness, the humans use it against them to stop themselves from dying, which fuels back into this cycle of fighting and anger and hate and war, which is the whole point.
Right.
Is they're literally just fighting in circles. I guess I should mention the princess does end up on the human ship and ends up falling in love with the captain of the ship, and they're like a thing, and they're totally cool and chill. And her sister, her older sister, is on the other side, obviously, and she's like, nope, gotta kill my sister, she sucks. And through all of this fighting, for some reason, the spaceship or the robot or something is sending meteors at both planets.
At both of our factions' home planets.
Yeah, so our Earth and what was it? Buff Clan?
Buff clans.
The Buff Clan's home planet as well.
Right.
And it just, so, that's not great because it keeps hitting meteors on the planet and destroying stuff.
Yeah.
And that is movie 1. Oh, sorry. One other thing brought up in movie 1 is, so the Ideon, the power source of the robot in the ship, seems to be a conglomerate mind meld thing of thousands of previous intelligent species entities. Mm-hmm. And it mostly reacts to the mindset of innocent children who have done no evil or whatever.
Right.
And there are multiple children on this ship, and it reacts very strongly to them. Mm-hmm. That's the first movie.
It literally is described as like, the innocence of children is its power source.
Mm-hmm. And it works to protect them more than anything else.
Right. So, like, when it uses more powerful weaponry, it's because it is trying to be defensive
of the children. And or
but
itself, because it's definitely becoming more and more sentient as the series goes on.
Right, because I don't want to mistake what it's doing as some kind of altruistic protective act, because the movie very much so says that, like, what it's doing is kind of horrifying and unpredictable, and
they're using it because it's their only line of defense.
Right.
But it's not great.
Yeah. Like, this robot is kind of like having an eldritch horror on their ship, but an eldritch horror that is extremely useful in keeping them all alive.
Keeping them all alive, and it keeps guiding them to do this or that, and they're not sure exactly why they're doing it. But
yeah, there's some element of, like, it might be controlling them.
And they can't really tell, and they just kind of have to go with it because they have no other options.
Right.
Movie 2! The princess is pregnant.
Yeah, suddenly.
And the Ideon reacts very strongly to this child. Mm-hmm. Because, again, unborn child, it's going to protect it no matter what.
Right.
And then it does the Ideon does a dick move and teleports the princess onto the command ship of the
Buff Clan.
The Buff Clan, which is where her dad is, who is in
Spock.
Spock. He looks like, honestly, he directly looks like Spock's father from one of the Star Trek movies. Uh-huh. I'm just like, hello, sir. Anyways, he's like, well, gotta kill you because you have an alien baby in you. Mm-hmm. The Ideon then teleports next to the ship as well. More fighting, and as the princess is trying to escape back to the Ideon, her ship McHecking explodes.
Well, yeah, they explode her ship.
Yeah, they blow her up.
They're like escape pod ship.
Yes, the escape pod to get back to the Ideon from the Buff Clan ship.
Right.
And then everyone's like psychically linked, and the main character, who is this kid with a red afro, his name is Cosmo.
Uh-huh. We've not talked about him at all.
Because the movie didn't care about him in the first movie. It's not until this movie where it can slow down a little bit that we get to know him, mostly, and the other two children pilots, one of which is a younger kid with a squirrel, and
Deck.
And then a girl.
And I don't remember her name.
And him and her and Cosmo are kind of a thing.
There are some lovely pieces of animation that do kind of endear me to these characters.
Mm-hmm. Like at one point they try to kiss.
Film. Yeah. Like, okay. Also, they're early on in Be Invoked, there's a recap of something that didn't happen in the first movie, but apparently there is a girl on another planet that Cosmo knew who died, and they change her death to be more gruesome in
of course
this movie.
Of course they did, because that's what this movie likes to do.
Yeah, gruesome deaths.
Gruesome deaths. So, I don't know
From this point forward, y'all be warned.
There's gruesome deaths for everyone.
Yeah. Like,
full stop.
If you don't want to hear about them, now's the time to skip ahead.
Yeah. So, I don't know what it was in the original anime, but in this version...
She's just shot.
Oh, in this version, she's exploded, and we see the reflection on Cosmo's helmet as her head goes flying across the screen.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. But also, Cosmo is kind of a thing with the blonde girl who is the other pilot. And they try to kiss at one point in this movie, but their helmets are in the way.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's really cute, actually.
So Cosmo's like, you stay here, continue to protect this area. Don't die on me.
Right.
Anyways, back to where we were in the actual plot.
Yeah.
The princess's ship explodes, but the Ideon protects her because of the baby inside of her. Mm-hmm. And they get back to the Ideon, and the Ideon and the big ship run away. Except they're being chased now for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, the Buff Clan's like, we will chase you down to the ends of the universe if we have to.
It's like Star Wars number 8.
Sure.
Where, like, the whole movie is literally just a ship being chased the whole time by the bad guys. And they're slowly getting picked off.
Are you sure you're talking about the right one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the Last Jedi.
The Last... Okay, yeah.
Number 8. The second of the new trilogy.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Like, it's that concept. Is they're constantly being chased by the bad guys and shot down, and they're invading the ship, and
yeah. Gotcha.
More characters start dying here and there, and like most of the extra humans that are on this ship are dead. The only ones left is like the mom, the 4 children, the pilot, and like 2 other guys. Mm-hmm. The princess. The princess is still alive too, with her baby inside of her. Mm-hmm. The princess's sister
from the Buff Clan.
Sneaks on the ship, realizes that. Because she realizes the Ideon is specifically protecting her sister and her unborn child.
Right.
So she wants to destroy the Ideon's power by killing her sister.
Yeah.
So she sneaks onto the ship, kills one of the kids, and then shoots her sister 3 times in the face, killing her.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
The Ideon does not like this.
Does not like this at all, and nukes both planets.
Yeah. Like, they're just...
Both Earths destroyed.
Yeah.
Everyone dead. Mm-hmm. Absolutely everyone is dead.
However, it is also keeping the baby inside of her alive.
Yes. The baby inside...
Who they've decided to call Messiah.
Yeah, they've decided to call this unborn baby Messiah. Mm-hmm. Because he's super powered and the Ideon protects it.
Right.
And then we just spend more time everybody dying.
Yeah, killing everybody.
And it's really upsetting and gruesome because there are multiple children on this ship and they show all of them die.
Yep.
I will not show it, but one of the children, who is probably, 7.
Eshera, yeah.
She gets McHeckin decapitated by debris.
And it comes out of nowhere.
It's really depressing.
Just something explodes.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
And just like a piece of debris comes across and whoop, she don't got no head no more. Mm-hmm. It haunts me. Mm-hmm. That's probably going to stick with me for some amount of time.
But then also the girlfriend character, she gets hit with shrapnel, and
her helmet shatters, and you don't actually get to see her face after that. But she dies before she reunites with Cosmo. Mm-hmm. Cosmo finds out everybody's dead, and also Daddy Spock is also like, yeah, we're probably just playing into the Ideon's hand here. It clearly wants all of intelligent life to be dead at this point.
Yeah, so this is the point of the movie where, if you're a sane person, you're like, okay, obviously these guys just need to stop fighting.
Yes.
There's nothing to gain out of this. But at the same hand, you don't know if the Ideon is just continuing to make them fight each other, or if they're just like, well, we've come this far, fuck it.
We're gonna die. And even some of the characters are like, I don't know at this point.
Right.
So, the Buff Clan has essentially a Death Star that can blow up planets, and they're using it to explodinate the ship where the 2 remaining living humans are on. And
which is the Captain, Bess, and Cosmo.
Yeah, that's it. And Cosmo is the only one left on the robot, and he's like, fuck it, I'm taking out the the enemy ship.
Right.
And literally everyone in the universe dies.
Yeah, because it's not just they finally kill each other. There's so much like war and hatred going on that the Ideon itself explodes the universe.
Yeah, it just kills every sentient, intelligent life form in the universe.
Yeah.
And the movie's not over.
No.
If that's where it ended, I'd be like, okay, depressing, whatever, fine.
Got it.
Got it.
War is bad.
War is bad. But no, we still have like 5 minutes left of this movie. And suddenly, every character that has died in the entire franchise at this point is now space ghosts flying through space, naked. All the children are back, everyone that died. And they're all following Messiah, the unborn baby who is now infused with the Ideon who has been invoked.
Right.
Which, name of the movie, Be Invoked.
Right.
The Ideon has been invoked. It has destroyed all the evil humanity and is now leading them all to a new planet where they will be... This is me hypothesizing here because the movie doesn't say what's going on.
No, the movie doesn't explain this part. And I think I'd be more okay with this whole ending if it kind of explained what it was going for here.
So what it shows is all the people just kind of fly off together to a planet, and then we get some really bad, grainy footage of, like, actual footage of the ocean. Like 7 different grainy ocean shots, and the movie just ends.
Right, which leaves me with the impression of like, okay, everyone's died, but now they're happy and peaceful in heaven or some kind of message. Like
Because
that's
all the people on both sides are like finally reunited with their loved ones and they can move on and they follow Messiah to this new planet. And I'm like, what? Did they get reborn here? Is this where Messiah has decided new intelligent life will spring up, supposedly with less war this time?
Yes.
So,
yeah, so, you know, looking at what I've read about the show and everything else, I'm guessing where the show ends, it kind of explains this a little bit more, maybe. But what's definitely supposed to be implied is that they all get reborn, leaving their grief of this war and their hatred and like all their hang-ups behind, and they will grow into a more peaceful, productive, kinder, compassionate civilization all across the universe.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what you're supposed to get out of this. That's not what I was feeling by the end of this film, because I didn't feel it didn't really clarify that part very well.
Mm-hmm. Instead, it's just war is bad and all these characters you knew and loved are dead now. And now they're ghosts or whatever.
Yeah.
So, going through this movie, I've experienced this level of, like, hopelessness and depression from watching all of your favorite characters die horribly. Because
not very many series do it, but when they do it, it's awful.
Because I've watched Devilman Crybaby, and that is a show that just wants you to feel terrible.
Yeah.
And empty by the end. And it does a really goddamn good job of it. I am sure this movie, for the fans of the show, when it came out, was devastating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can only assume it was awful. Thankfully, we're not super attached to these characters, and it still sucked.
Yeah, and again, like, I don't think that makes this bad. It's going for a very specific mood. It is not going to hold your hand through any of it. And it wants you to feel despair and kind of empty at the end of this, but also be like, hey, war is bad, and like we really just can't tiptoe around this subject. Like, this is the inevitable outcome of war.
Yeah.
And like, I think it does a good job in that regard. It's definitely not something I want to watch again.
Yeah, no, I probably will never revisit this franchise. But feel free to watch them if you want, I guess.
it's not a bad, like, use of, what was it to watch both of these films? Like
3 hours and 15 minutes, give or take.
Yeah.
Like, they were both roughly an hour and a half, slightly longer. So they weren't the worst. They weren't both like 2.5 hours of nothing.
Yeah.
Like we sometimes experience on this show.
Right.
So no, I like, and it's fast paced.
Yeah,
Like both
yes,
movies
yeah.
are fast paced. They're always doing things. The first movie is always going over 1 million plot beats. The second movie is always killing characters brutally. But it's something's always happening.
Something's always happening. Yeah. And about the time that you process what just happened, we've moved on to something else happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so let's talk about Space Runaway Ideon for a little bit here.
Okay.
So this was directed by Yoshiyuki Tamino, who is most famous for creating Mobile Suit Gundam.
Aha! Okay. I was about to say, this feels like it's a very similar vibe to Gundam. Because we've only watched like the first episode or two of that. But
Yep.
it's like, it's essentially humans versus humans, war is bad.
Right.
Like, that's the whole concept of Mobile Suit Gundam. It's very gray on who's good and who's bad and stuff like that. I know that about the series. And this felt very much so like that. So,
And-
knowing that they also created Gundam makes perfect sense now.
And, I mean, you can kind of marvel at the fact that, like, I mean, Mobile Suit Gundam is probably one of the most famous, influential of the, like, Gundam-esque anime genre.
The giant robot.
Giant robot.
Yeah, giant robot anime.
And this show very much kind of deconstructs
That
the whole genre of, like, the robot is good and doing good and cool things and everything. And, like, this show really flips that on its head.
of you should be questioning this robot at all times.
Right. This just giant, super powerful robot. Maybe it's not great
Yeah.
and cool and awesome. This, like Mobile Suit Gundam, this show was also canceled and then kind of became popular later on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the show was canceled 39 episodes into a planned 43.
Okay.
Where the show ended was, if you remember when we were talking about Be Invoked, there's a part where the princess is escaping from the Buff clan in her escape pod and it gets blown up. That's kind of where the show ends.
Okay.
Because it's at that point where the Ideon is like, okay, the Earthlings and the Buff clan have made their choice. Peace is impossible. I've been invoked. I'm destroying the universe.
Okay.
So it destroys the universe, and then there's the, like, they all float away.
The weird ghost ending.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the movie Be Invoked very specifically just rewrites that ending a little bit.
So it's all just torture porn.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's like, it gets to the same end result, but, you know, gives you all the
Nitty gritty of
horrible
everyone
graphic
dying.
depictions of war along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, so fun. So Be Invoked is definitely considered the canonical ending.
I can see that, yeah.
This show is also widely considered to have inspired Neon Genesis Evangelion and Devilman.
Yeah. So I was talking about Devilman earlier.
Yeah.
It's the first part seems happy-go-lucky and then it just gets really dark.
And you could almost wonder if this is the direction the show is supposed to take right away, especially if you just watch these two movies. Because, like, just from watching the first movie, you're like, well, I don't think it's going to get that dark. But it's actually highly likely that this was the plan from the beginning with this show, because literally the OP, the opening of the show, is like, you know, this happy, upbeat robot anime opening, but it talks about how the Ideon has the power to destroy the universe. And also, I went ahead and I watched the opening just to see it. And it also shows, like, the galaxy being reflected in the visor of the
robot.
And it's like, yeah. It was definitely hinting towards this.
From the very beginning. Yeah. So it's interesting you say how it was intended or not, because I've read a good chunk of the original Devilman manga, and it has a similar vibe of, it's kind of supposed to be like Devilman's a superhero and he's saving people from these devils, but then, like, I don't know, 15 chapters in, it literally takes 2 pages, turns to the audience and says, hey, the manga's about to get really dark. Only read if you're okay with that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It literally stops and tells you, hey,
like,
everyone's gonna die.
This is the point of no return.
Yeah, it's about to get really dark, and if you're not okay with that, probably stop reading.
Oh.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder with that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again in the future, but it's like, it's literally, well, if you're prepared, go in. If you're not, leave.
It's been fun up to this point. That's gonna stop now.
Yep.
Yeah, so the show originally ran from May 1980 to January 1981. It was canceled, wrapped up quickly, and then these 2 movies came out in July of the next year.
Okay.
So, I mean, quite impressive, like, July of the next year to have these 2 films released. It's like, and they're using some clips from the show, to be sure, but there's definitely a decent chunk of animation being done to make these feel more like movies rather than just a clip show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially in the second film, there are multiple segments of very nice animation.
Very nice animation, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, the animation is kind of your standard TV fare animation. But yeah, there's some really nice character interactions and character animation done in the second movie, which, you know, makes it worse.
Yeah, makes it so much worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was an interesting set of films to watch. I'm super glad it wasn't a slog, because when you told me that we had 2 movies to watch, I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
No.
But no. I generally enjoyed the experience of watching them, but they are rough.
It's dark. Yeah. So if that's your kind of thing, definitely give this a watch. If Neon Genesis Evangelion or Devilman Crybaby really spoke to you, like, I definitely check this one out. It's not going to hit you as hard just because, like, you don't have the time to get endeared to these characters.
I guess you could always watch the show and then the second movie.
Show.
Yeah. Well, either way.
But also, if any of this was way too much for you, us just describing it, probably skip out on these.
Absolutely. And then join us back here next time as we watch a movie that is probably going to be a lot lighter and less serious.
Good, I could use that.
Because we're going to be watching Dr. Slump Hoyoyo Space Adventure.
Why is everything a space adventure? Oh well.
Anyways, this is made by Akira Toriyama, the guy that goes on to make Dragon Ball.
Oh, okay.
This is his series before that.
Wow. Oh boy.
It's a comedy.
All right.
Let's go.
See you then.